Most gardeners think October means saying goodbye to color until spring. But what if I told you that some of the most vibrant, resilient perennials are just hitting their stride when the first frost threatens? While your neighbors are pulling up annuals and resigning themselves to brown landscapes, you could be watching brilliant blooms and foliage that laugh in the face of freezing temperatures. If this sounds like the garden you want, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss practical tips that'll transform your cold season landscape. Hey there, garden friends. I'm so glad you're here today, and if you find this helpful, a quick like really helps others discover these ideas too. Picture this. It's late October, maybe even early November. And while most gardens look like they've given up, yours is still putting on a show. That's the magic of choosing perennials that don't just tolerate cold weather, they actually thrive in it. These plants come back year after year, getting stronger and more impressive with age, and they're perfectly suited to American growing conditions from coast to coast. Some will surprise you with blooms when everything else has quit. Others will offer foliage so stunning you won't even miss the flowers. And a few will give you both well into the winter months. Here's something that might shift your whole perspective. Most people think of spring as planting season, but autumn is actually one of the smartest times to get perennials into the ground. The soil is still warm, which encourages root growth, but cooler air means less stress on the plant. These cold, hardy varieties get a head start establishing roots before winter, which means they'll explode with growth come spring. Plus, many nurseries discount perennials in fall, so you're getting better plants for better prices. So there you have it, 8 cold, hardy perennials that prove your garden doesn't have to surrender when temperatures drop. From autumn clematis to fall pansies, these tough performers bring color, texture, and life to the landscape when most gardens have called it quits. They remind us that gardening isn't just about the peak abundance of summer. It's about working with the seasons and celebrating what each one offers. There's something deeply satisfying about walking outside in late October or even November and seeing your garden still vibrant and alive, still supporting pollinators, still bringing beauty to the world. Which of these would you be most excited to try in your own garden? And what's currently blooming for you as we head into the colder months? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I love hearing what works in different regions. And if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing so you don't miss future tips on creating gardens that perform beautifully all year long. Happy gardening, friends! Let's start with something that'll redefine what you think is possible in October. Imagine seeing clusters of pure white flowers that look like they belong in a spring garden, except they're blooming in temperatures that would send most plants into hiding. That's autumn clematis, and if you've never grown this vine, you're missing out on one of the most spectacular late-season performers. This variety waits until late summer and keeps going strong through October, sometimes even into early November. The small white flowers cover the vine so densely it looks draped in snow, and the fragrance is intoxicating, this sweet, vanilla-like scent that carries on cool evening breezes. Once established, this plant handles everything from blazing southern summers to surprisingly cold northern falls. It's vigorous without being thuggish in most regions, though Deep South gardeners should watch it carefully. Give it a fence, arbor, or even a dead tree to climb, and it'll reward you with that spectacular September and October display. The vine grows quickly, often reaching 15 to 20 feet in a single season, perfect for covering unsightly structures or creating privacy screens. Plant it where it'll get at least 6 hours of sun, though it tolerates partial shade. The soil just needs to be reasonably well draining, and once established, this clematis handles dry spells better than you'd expect. The key is that it blooms on new growth, so you can cut it back hard in late winter without sacrificing flowers. Cutting it to about 12 inches from the ground each spring keeps it manageable and promotes more blooms. Some gardeners worry about spreading, but simply deadheading after bloom keeps it where you want it. The seed heads themselves are quite ornamental, these silvery, feathery plumes that catch morning frost beautifully. Here's a bonus. Autumn clematis is one of the best plants for attracting late-season pollinators. When butterflies and bees desperately need nectar before winter, this vine becomes an absolute magnet. It's like throwing a farewell party for pollinators right when they need it most. Have you grown any type of clematis that keeps blooming when other plants have shut down for the season? Now let's talk about a plant that completely changes the game when frost arrives. While most flowers shrivel at the first freeze, one perennial actually becomes more beautiful, its colors deepening and intensifying as temperatures drop. Sedum, especially the upright varieties like Autumn Joy, is that rare plant that looks better in October than it did in August. These succulents start the season with thick blue-green foliage and tight flower buds, then bloom in late summer with pink flowers that gradually deepen to copper, bronze, and finally rusty red as fall progresses. By the time snow arrives, those dried flower heads stand like sculptures in the garden, beautiful, even when coated in ice. What makes sedum absolutely perfect for American gardens is its ability to thrive practically anywhere. From the arid Southwest to humid southern states to frigid northern regions, this plant adapts and performs. It asks for almost nothing, just decent drainage and some sunshine, and it'll reward you with 3 seasons of interest. The thick leaves store water like a cactus, which means it laughs at drought and handles those unpredictable dry spells that catch other perennials off guard. Plant it in spring or fall, water it occasionally the first season, then basically forget about it except to enjoy the show. Butterflies and bees absolutely mob the flowers in September and October when nectar sources are scarce, and birds feast on the seeds through winter. Here's the secret most gardeners miss. Don't cut sedum back in fall. Those dried flower heads provide incredible winter interest and food for wildlife. Plus, they protect the crown from temperature fluctuations. Wait until early spring when new growth emerges, then simply cut off the old stems. If your sedum gets floppy by midsummer, that usually means too much shade or too much fertilizer. These are lean, mean plants that actually perform better in poor soil. Rich soil makes them grow tall and weak, while lean soil keeps them compact and sturdy. Every 3 or 4 years, you can divide mature clumps in spring, which gives you more plants and keeps the original vigorous. Each division establishes quickly and blooms that same fall. Do you have any plants in your garden that actually look better after the first frost hits? Here's something that might surprise you about fall color. Most people think of trees and shrubs, but one perennial grass brings autumn fire to the garden like nothing else. Carl Forster, Feather reed grass stands tall and elegant through the entire season, but it's in October when this grass really shows its worth. The golden wheat-colored plumes catch the low autumn light and seem to glow from within, and unlike many grasses that flop over with the first rain, this one maintains perfect upright form through snow and ice. It's become one of the most popular ornamental grasses in America, for good reason. This grass works beautifully across most of the country, thriving in conditions from the Pacific Northwest to the Northeast, and even handling heat reasonably well in southern regions. It grows in a tight vertical clump, reaching about 5 feet tall when in bloom, which makes it perfect for adding height and movement without taking up much ground space. Plant several together for a stunning screen or use single clumps as exclamation points in the border. The best part is how early it blooms compared to other grasses, sending up those feathery plumes in early summer, that age, to that spectacular golden color by fall. While other grasses are just starting to bloom, Karl Forster is already creating structure and texture. Growing this grass couldn't be simpler. Full sun is ideal, though it tolerates light shade better than most grasses. It's not picky about soil as long as drainage is reasonable, and it actually handles clay soil better than many perennials. Water it regularly the first season to establish roots, then it's remarkably drought-tolerant once settled in. Unlike some ornamental grasses that seed aggressively, Karl Forster produces sterile seeds so it won't pop up all over your garden. Leave the foliage standing through winter for texture and wildlife value. Then cut it back to about 6 inches in early spring before new growth starts. It's one of those perfect plants that gives you enormous impact for minimal effort. What's your experience with ornamental grasses? Do they survive winter well in your area? Let's talk about a plant that defies every expectation about what's possible in a fall garden. Most perennials wind down as daylight shortens, but asters are just warming up, and they'll keep blooming right up until hard frost shuts them down. These are the stars of the October garden. Literally, their name comes from the Greek word for star. New England asters especially shine in northern climates, producing masses of purple, pink, or white, daisy-like flowers that cover the plant so completely you can barely see the foliage. Picture a 3-foot mound absolutely smothered in blooms while everything around it is fading to brown. Native to eastern North America, asters are supremely adapted to our climate extremes. They handle summer heat and humidity, then transition seamlessly into cool fall weather without missing a beat. Butterflies, especially monarchs on their migration south, depend on these late blooms for fuel. Plant asters in spring in full sun with average garden soil, and they'll establish quickly. The secret to keeping them bushy and preventing that bare-legged look is to cut them back by half in early June. This pinching delays bloom slightly, but creates fuller plants with way more flowers. Asters appreciate consistent moisture, but aren't fussy once established, and they naturally resist most pests and diseases. Divide clumps every few years in spring to maintain vigor. Here's something many gardeners don't realize. Different aster varieties bloom at different times from late summer through late fall. By choosing several types, you can have aster blooms from August straight through November in many regions. Aromatic aster starts earliest, then New England and New York asters take over, and finally smooth aster closes out the season. It's like planting a succession crop but with flowers. Have you noticed butterflies mobbing any particular flowers in your late-season garden? Now, here's a myth I need to bust about fall gardens. People think you can't have lush, colorful foliage once frost threatens, but Huchera proves that completely wrong. These shade-loving perennials, commonly called coral bells, offer foliage in colors you wouldn't believe possible. Deep burgundy, bright chartreuse, silver with purple veining, bronze, orange, even near black. While other plants lose their leaves, Huchera stays evergreen or semi-evergreen in most American climates, looking absolutely stunning right through Thanksgiving and beyond. What makes Huchera brilliant for extending your season is that the foliage actually intensifies in color as temperatures cool. Those burgundy leaves get richer and deeper, the oranges become more vibrant, and even varieties that look fairly subdued in summer turn spectacular in fall. These plants thrive in partial shade, which makes them perfect for those tricky spots under trees or on the north side of buildings where most colorful plants struggle. They handle full sun in cooler climates, but appreciate afternoon shade in hot regions. The root crown sits above the soil surface, so plant them high and mulch around, but not over the crown. This prevents rot issues and keeps plants vigorous. Huchera works beautifully in the Northeast, Midwest, and Pacific Northwest, and many varieties handle southern heat if given adequate shade. The small bell-shaped flowers on tall stalks are nice in early summer, but it's really about that foliage carrying color month after month. Every 2 or 3 years, divide plants in early spring or early fall, replanting the divisions slightly deeper to cover any exposed roots. Watch for winter heaving, where freeze-thaw cycles push plants out of the ground, and simply press them back down or add a light mulch after the ground freezes. Pair Huchera with ferns and hostas for a shade garden that stays beautiful until snow flies. What's the most unusual foliage color you've ever grown successfully? Here's a plant that'll make you rethink everything about winter gardening. Hellebores, often called Christmas rose or Lenten rose, bloom when snow is still on the ground in many regions. We're talking about substantial flowers in shades of white, pink, purple, burgundy, even spotted and double forms, appearing from late winter into early spring when your garden desperately needs that shot of color. But here's what most people miss. The foliage stays gorgeous all through fall and early winter, these deep green leathery leaves that look intentional and elegant even when everything else has died back. These shade lovers thrive across a huge range of American climates, from the upper South through the mid-Atlantic and into southern New England. They prefer woodland conditions with dappled shade and rich, well-draining soil amended with compost. Plant them in fall for best results, giving them time to establish before their late winter bloom show. Once settled, hellebores are incredibly long-lived, slowly forming larger clumps that can bloom for decades without division. They resent being moved, so choose your spot carefully. The flowers last for months, slowly fading but remaining attractive, and they self-seed gently to create natural drifts over time. Here's the care secret. Cut off the old leaves in late January or early February, right before the flower buds emerge. This cleaning up shows off the blooms beautifully and prevents fungal issues. Hellebores are deer-resistant, drought-tolerant once established, and virtually pest-free. They're one of those miraculous plants that ask for almost nothing, but give beauty during the bleakest months. The one thing to know is that all parts are toxic, so plant them away from curious pets and children. Do you have any plants that bloom during the coldest months where you live? Let me share something that changed my whole approach to fall planting. Russian sage isn't technically a perennial in the coldest zones, but across most of America it returns reliably and puts on an incredible show from midsummer straight through hard frost. The silvery foliage and lavender blue flowers create this hazy, romantic effect in the garden, and bees work the flowers constantly through September and October. Even after frost kills the blooms, the silver-white stems stand architectural and beautiful through winter, catching snow and creating structure when the garden needs it most. This plant thrives in heat and handles drought like a champion once established, making it perfect for water-wise gardens across the West and South. It demands excellent drainage and full sun at least 6 hours. Poor, lean soil actually produces better results than rich soil. Planted in spring, water occasionally the first summer, then basically ignore it. The woody stems should be cut back hard in early spring, down to about 6 inches, which encourages fresh growth and prevents the plant from getting too leggy. Russian sage can reach 4 feet tall and wide, so give it room to spread. The silvery foliage combines beautifully with ornamental grasses, sedum, and asters for a full-season display that transitions seamlessly from summer into fall. Now, I saved the one that surprised me most for last. Pansies and violas are usually considered annuals, but modern cold hardy varieties planted in fall will bloom through October, November, and in mild regions straight through winter into spring. We're talking about cheerful faces in purple, yellow, orange, and white, popping up between snowfalls, bringing absurd amounts of color when you least expect it. Fall-planted pansies establish roots in cool weather, go dormant during the worst cold, then resume blooming with the first warm spell. This strategy works brilliantly across most American climates. Choose varieties specifically bred for fall planting and cold tolerance. Plant them in September or early October in well-draining soil enriched with compost, spacing them about 6 to 8 inches apart. They prefer full sun, but tolerate partial shade. Keep them watered until the ground freezes, and they'll surprise you with blooms during every mild spell. Deadhead spent flowers to encourage more blooms, and fertilize lightly every few weeks until hard frost arrives. In spring, these same plants will explode with flowers before finally wearing out in late spring heat. It's like getting 2 seasons from one planting.